a lot of layers when it comes to the Taiwan-China relations. What are the red lines over here that you think China considers having been breached, because of which we are seeing the kind of statements that are coming in from Beijing and the kind of mobilization that we're seeing through videos that have been put out?
Thank you very much for having me. You know for sure that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States, who ranked at number 2 in line of succession, next only to the Vice President of the United States, visited Taiwan these couple of days, and China gave warning before her visit, asking her not to do the visit because it would be considered as a serious violation of the One China policy. Now, Nancy Pelosi made the trip despite of the counseling against it by US President Joe Biden, against the counseling of the US military. So this is serious stuff. She did not go to Taiwan as a tourist. She did not make all these meetings as an old grand lady in her own capacity. No, she was wearing the official hat. She was leading a large congressional delegation, and she was promoting Taiwanese independence. She was holding Taiwan out as an independent sovereign country, separate from China. This is the taboo of the taboo and the red line of the red line as far as China is concerned. So China is fully justified to feel very indignant about it, and the Chinese people are completely behind the Chinese government, because we want to achieve the national reunification. In the world, there is only one China, and Taiwan is part of China, and more than 181 countries in the world, including the United States, all the NATO members, all the EU members, all the OECD members, and great countries like India, for example, acknowledge that there is only one China. Taiwan is part of China, and the People's Republic of China is the sole legitimate representative of China. Sure, Nancy Pelosi is classified as troublemaker in chief in the world.
We will talk about the Taiwan question, but going back to Nancy Pelosi and the visit itself. Now, while China considers this an absolute, the United States of America in many statements have come out to say that this is not a US administration visit, but it's a visit by the US House Speaker, and she does not take orders, or she does not require permission from the administration or from the president. Isn't that a distinction that China or Beijing could also see, or Beijing is not going to draw a distinction between the administration and representatives of the House, congressmen, congresswomen, speaker visiting Taiwan?
No one can deny that Nancy Pelosi is the number 3 highest ranking US government official, even though her official title is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, that's for sure. But from the Chinese perspective, such a high-ranking official cannot be allowed to visit Taiwan. Otherwise, it will trigger huge consequences. So Nancy Pelosi disregarded China, disregarded Vice President Biden, disregarded the US Pentagon. She made the visit, so wait for the consequences which will unfold. I think the consequences will be several levels. One will be against Nancy Pelosi and her delegation and their families. They will be forbidden forever to do business with China, with China's Hong Kong, Macau, and after reunification with China's Taiwan province. Secondly, they will be prohibited from entering into China. We do not want to have any glimpse of these people, because they will be considered as completely illegitimate, because they want to separate Taiwan from China. They want to damage the Chinese national unity, China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, the other level of sanctions will be against the US government, because, you know, China-US cooperation on many matters of international importance like climate change, you name it, will be important not only for China and the United States and for mankind as a whole. But US cannot have the cake and eat it. They let China down. They destroy the Chinese trust, if any, in the US government, and they need to suffer the consequences. And going forward, I think China and the United States will find it more difficult to get along with each other, because Nancy Pelosi managed to destroy the trust between China and the United States as two countries, and the Chinese government and the US government as two governments. It will be rough riding going forward.
That's a very serious statement that you're making, that going forward from here on, US and China will certainly not see eye to eye on many issues, on many fronts. That the relationship has taken, there's a new low in the ties between the two countries, and the ties have already suffered in the recent past with the souring of relationship between China and the United States of America. But let me go back to the consequences. You've mentioned consequences to Nancy Pelosi, the delegation, their family members, so on and so forth. Let's just focus on the military and economic aspect, beginning with military. We are looking at exercises, announcements, which could lead to blockage of the port and shipping lanes in Taiwan. But is it all bluff and bluster? A lot of people are saying that China is talking a lot, but will not be walking the talk when it comes to action. Many said that even for Russia, when the Russia-Ukraine war began. But what is the military consequence of this visit?
Thank you very much. I think you are raising a very important question. Now, in 1950, before General MacArthur and his US troops marched across the Parallel 38, China officially gave warning to the United States not allow its troops to cross beyond Parallel 38. Otherwise, China will have no other option but to take action. And China relayed the message to the United States through the Indian ambassador to China. Can you believe it? And the United States and General MacArthur completely ignored. They concluded that China was in no position to putting a fight against the United States in North Korea. Then what happened? Lo and behold, the Chinese People's Volunteers pushed the American troops by several hundred kilometers way below Parallel 38. And General MacArthur, as a result, lost his job as one of the highest regarded US generals, and the US military has never suffered another defeat as miserable as this one. This was in 1950 to 1953. If you ask any US military officer, he will tell you for sure that the defeat in Korea has ever been carved into their psyche and the bones. Ever since then, the United States military always wanted to avoid a direct conflict with Chinese military. Now, China is fully committed to fight a war against the United States if it wants to stand in the way to prevent the Chinese national reunity. This is the strong message China is giving to the United States, and China will use whatever means available, including military means, to achieve the national reunification. So wait and see the consequences being unfolding as we speak.
Are we looking at a serious military action apart from the military operations and exercises in order to move forward for what China considers reunification? Is that going to happen? Is this the beginning of that?
Allow me to make several points. One is that the Chinese reunification is a megatrend in our times. And I hope Nancy Pelosi, 82 years old as of today, will live to see that being achieved before she passes away. Secondly, most of us alive, including all your audience, I hope, will live to see the achievement and realization of the Chinese national reunification. And Taiwan will be restored to her rightful position as one of the provinces of China. And the people in Taiwan, altogether 23 million of them, will again be rejoined with their brothers and sisters on China's mainland. This is the mega trend of our time. It will happen. It will happen either very soon or in a number of years. I hope it will happen through peaceful means. And if people in Taiwan or some forces in Taiwan want to stand in the way against this peaceful reunification, then non-peaceful means will have to be adopted to achieve this goal.
One more question. Taiwan considers all these statements that come from Beijing as bullying tactics, that that China is trying to bully Taiwan to succumb to their wishes. And Taiwan is not going to do that anytime soon. It seems like Taiwan also has a lot of support, not just in terms of the statements, the visits, engagements, but also in terms of weapons, the technology, the systems that Taiwan has. So in many ways than one, Taiwan has the wherewithal, may not have the wherewithal to take on China alone, but if it has the wherewithal and the support of the other countries, allied nations, then how does China propose to take Taiwan on militarily?
Listen, don't underestimate the military might of China as a country, the whole Chinese nation as a people, and don't underestimate the determination and the capabilities of the Chinese Liberation Army. It is the Chinese Liberation Army in the form of the Chinese People's Volunteers who defeated the American troops in Korea, pushed them in several campaigns by more than 300 kilometers from Yalu River all the way down to parallel 38. No other country has ever done that. The former Soviet Union and Russia today, they have never fought a direct battle against the US troops. China did, the Chinese People's Liberation Army did. They succeeded in defeating the American troops. And I hope American soldiers and officers will never forget it, because it's carved in their stone. The Chinese military and the American military should never fight a war against each other, because otherwise it will be Armageddon. So I don't believe when China and Taiwan are reunited into one single family, the United States will send troops to prevent that from happening, or British, Australian, Japanese, etc. These countries will send their troops to prevent that from happening. This is the destiny for the Chinese nation. This is the realization of the national rejuvenation and the national reunification for all Chinese people, including people in Taiwan. No country has any legitimacy in getting involved, and no country can achieve the goal of keeping Taiwan and China as two separated countries.